Welcome back for another episode of Strive for 25. Joel Farrell here, and looking forward to sharing with you our guest today. Another episode of the Strive for 25 podcast, and I have a really cool guest on who I've grown to know pretty well because she helps me with my podcast, this podcast exactly. Her name is Jazzy Wilson, and for those audience members, please tell them who you are, Jazzy.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Thanks for having me on. Like you said, my name's Jazzy. I am the owner and founder of Premier Podcast Promotions, and it's kind of a job that I really love it. I'm so glad I'm doing it, but it kind of fell into my lap, and I started doing it out of necessity.
Love it. Okay, so I can't wait to dig into this, but just so people can know who they're talking to and find you online, where do they find you online?
Yeah, so I have a Facebook, a LinkedIn, Instagram, all those things. They are all under Premier Podcast Promotions. And really, honestly, the best way to get a hold of me is just to give me a phone call anytime. I'm always by my phone. My phone number is 314-440-8043. And I'm always happy to talk to people.
Love it. Okay. So, like my own personal journey, I never thought I would be getting into a podcast. It just kind of just happened, and it's not about me. Um, but I bring it up because like this just never was part of my long-term vision and goal with what I wanted to do with my career in mortgages, right? And it's just things just fell into place for various reasons. And you and I were talking about this recently that like you didn't really have a long-term dream of getting into podcasts or social media or whatever. So how the heck did this thing even come about for you and your journey? Because your business has been in business for a couple of years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, tell us that.
So I was working at Planet Fitness. I was a manager at Planet Fitness in Kansas, and I loved it. I have nothing bad to say about that, but it's just kind of that thing where I knew I needed to make more money and I couldn't work there forever just doing what I was doing. And so I started looking around for other jobs, how I could make more income, start doing other things. And I actually got a job working for my friend's mom, doing a lot of like personal assistant, office assistant kind of work. And I liked that kind of stuff. I was really into it. But she's the one who got me started on the podcasting because she wanted to start a podcast. And that's kind of how I fell in love with it.
So she wanted to start a podcast, and she said, "Just do this for me, help me out." Like, how was that conversation? Like, how did it go from like this is what we're gonna do to like when it was like she launched? Like, walk us through that first initial journey.
Well, the first one was rough. I got on YouTube, watched a lot of YouTube, trying to find the people who really already knew what they were talking about, knew more than I did, and I just learned as much as I could, and we communicated a lot. I'd call her up and tell her the things I learned, what I thought we could do, what I thought we could try, and we talked about it a lot. And like I said, it was rough at first. We fumbled through a couple of things. The recording was hard at first, but we finally got to the point where we had a couple of good episodes. Things were recording well. People wanted to come on the show, and it got a lot better. So it was nice that I started with her because we were able to kind of learn and grow together.
Okay. So, what year was that? How long ago was that?
That was 2017.
2017. Holy
Mm-hmm.
cow. Holy cow. Okay. So you start out with. Do you want to share her name or no?
Yeah, that was Virginia Mooskies. I believe she's still doing her podcast. It's a business by referral.
Okay.
It's gotten pretty big, I think.
Cool.
At least in St. Louis.
And what does she do?
Who she owns three businesses. Her and her husband own the Midwest region of BNI, which stands for Business Networking International. It's just a big networking group. And then she also has her own business, Master Connectors, which is kind of the same thing. She's really good at getting people together and teaching them how to network and coaching them how to grow their own business. So all of her businesses are kind of connected in that way. And that's kind of what her podcast is about too, how to meet the right people, how to, after you've met the right people, get them into your network and really keep those connections going.
Okay. So I do want to come back to the logistics of like what and what you learned along the way. But like for Virginia, why was it important to start a podcast? What was her end goal or purpose of going through all the work to just launch it and do it every single week or whatever it was? Like what was her end vision?
Visibility. And I think that's kind of what podcasts are good for, is increasing your visibility, kind of getting you out on social media more with just kind of an authentic feel, because here we are, we're sitting here, we're recording. It's very real. It's very right now. And so people kind of get to know you without actually having to get to know you, you know?
Totally, totally. Okay. So she's been doing it for, I guess, what was it, 5 years now, and she's still
Yeah.
going. She's still going. Okay. So you have your Joe Rogans, you have your top people that are making all kinds of money, but like for the average person out there, what is their ultimate end destination or end goal or end gain, I guess you'd say, of doing it? You said visibility, but like what does that translate to in terms of like, you know, tangible results, I guess you'd say?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it depends. People have different kinds of goals for their podcast. But I would say that most people, their end goal is to monetize, right? Because you don't want it to just be an expensive hobby. You'd like to make some money off of it, get that secondary income coming in. And so realistically, if you do your podcast, you're consistent with it, you're on your social media, you're doing all the right things, you're getting your guests in, you're doing everything consistently. Realistically, I think most podcasts could start monetizing within 6 months to a year.
Okay. So 6 months to a year. And what would you say would be the good cadence that would be, ideal to start out with? Like once a month, once a week? Like what's the right number?
Personally, I think once a week.
Okay.
Most
Okay.
people have become pretty used to that. It's once a week. Your listeners can keep up with that rhythm and that consistency. And the person who's hosting can also keep up with that. It's not too much. If you're trying to do it 2, 3, 4 times a week, eventually you might have to slow down. You might run out of time. And if you're only doing it once a month, your listeners might get bored and they're going to want more. And so they might go look for it somewhere else.
That makes sense. So when you say monetize within, let's just say a year, what would be someone's realistic expectations of being able to generate in a month or a range? And let's just say
Once they hit
after,
that year mark where they're
yeah,
monetized,
yeah.
I'd say realistically, $1,200 a month.
Okay, cool. Cool. So I mean, maybe not gonna pay the bills, but
Right, right. No, it's definitely a secondary income kind of additional. Yeah.
yeah. And just to give, an example from me personally, like, one of the episodes that we had, and I just take one example. We've had 24 episodes, so I forget the number. And every episode's kind of been a little bit of a different topic of an expertise with the actual guest on. But one of them that I probably had the most people like actually physically like call me or text me. So side note, if something does grab your attention, you like it, you can text me, you can call me, you can email me and tell me that because I'm all open to good feedback, constructive feedback. So just quick side note. But the one with Jeff Badu talking about cost segregation in real estate, and he gave the example of a realtor making $150,000 of what they could do by buying a multifamily FHA and blah, 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 and cost segregation and tax strategies. And like, he used the word $1 billion.
Yeah.
Like I like dropped my jaw drop. It's still dropping still. Like when you use the word billion, if they follow that path and just do it and
Yeah.
continue to save money, you can build $1 billion net worth or portfolio, or whatever. And
Yeah.
it all makes sense, like if you actually know the game, which, I've had to learn the game of real estate. But I've had so many people reach out to me about that episode.
Hmm.
And I guess the reason why I bring it up is like it's a gateway into other conversations, gateway to catch people's attention, gateway to people to reach out to you and to knock down doors that you may not otherwise have been able to knock down doors. People calling me
Yeah.
about tax strategies, like, oh shit, I need to talk to your tax guy. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
not only are they reaching out to me, but it's also helping a friend of mine, Jeff, potentially be able to get more clients. And so like that's the cool stuff about it. It can open up a lot of doors.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so so when Virginia said, let's do a podcast until you launched it, like what was that time span? Like 4 hours, 5 hours?
Whew, no, I've gotten a little better since then, but I'd say probably took a month.
Yeah. So it took a month to just from scratch, figure it out, put it all together. What was the one thing that like you learned that was like, oh shit, that was a valuable thing that I like it took some time to learn, but like once you figured out, like everything started to make sense. Like, what was that one thing? Or is there one thing?
I don't think there's one thing, but I would say kind of figuring out how to really talk to people and figure out what their goals are going to be for the podcast so that it can get launched in a much shorter time period. That's being able to kind of have those conversations and figure that out and help hosts figure out what they want from it has
Okay.
really helped me and them.
Okay. So if I'm an aspiring entrepreneur and I want to at some point in time build my digital brand, build awareness for what I'm doing, what are some of the things that I should be thinking about of like, okay, well, what are the goals? Like you mentioned figuring out what somebody wants out of it. Like what would that actually look like in terms of an example or two of what the options may look like?
Yeah. So I have a couple clients that their their work, what they do is very much online oriented and they don't really have to meet their clients or anything like that. So having a big social media presence is important to them because that's how people find them. That's how people know who they are. So their goals for the podcast is really just to grow their following, get their social media bigger and better, and really have that impression and get a lot of people following them just so they can get more visibility really and get clients out of that. So that's their goal.
Mhm.
Then I have a couple other clients that really are hoping to make money from their podcast. So it's more important to them that their studio looks nice, their conversations are good, and they're bringing in the right people who want to talk to their audience so that they can start charging their guests and getting sponsors and really starting to monetize their podcast almost immediately. So just different kinds of goals for different people and depending on what their job is, who they want to talk to, those kinds of things.
Okay. So that last example, she walking away from the microphone here. That last example, someone trying to monetize sooner than later, right away. Is that a realistic goal? Like, do you have to like what does that person have to be coming in with? Like, I'm assuming like a decent sized following already to be able to monetize, right? Rather than trying to build your following. They've already got a following in some regard.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps present well, and people are more willing to pay to reach your audience if you have a large following already,
Okay.
especially if it's in the same niche, you know?
Okay. Okay. So from building back to building your business, right? Like you mentioned, helping that person figure out what they want to accomplish, that which then gives you the roadmap to be able to help them reach their goal. Um, you started with Virginia, right? And then
Mhm.
walk us through kind of the evolution of how your business came to unfold over time from there.
Well, so then Virginia referred me because that's what she does. She refers people. And so she referred me to someone else who was also looking to start a podcast. And so that was my next step. I helped Jenny with her podcast. And that one, Jenny's been my longest standing podcast client. And she actually just reached one of the top 300 business podcasts in America. So that was pretty exciting. That was also one of her goals. So reaching
Woo!
those goals. And it just every time it gets easier, I guess, as I learn more people and learn the different ways you can use podcasts and how to make everything better and more efficient. Yeah.
Okay, so better and efficient. Okay, so like one of the things I have to say out loud, and because at the end of the day, in my world, right? Like I'm running a mortgage branch, trying to bring in business, trying to make sure our loans are going according to plan, trying to build a platform outside of this with Stripe 25, trying to help that next person, understand the formula to building wealth, generating more income, saving, and the mindset part of it. And I have two 3-year-old boys and a wife, and trying to make sure that I devote enough time and attention to them.
Yeah.
So, like at the end of the day, there's only so much time in the day. So the point of that is like I honestly like I'm trying to do this podcast, and Jazzy was recommended to me by a mutual friend, Michael Swale. And if I'm gonna do this, like I don't have time to like review anything or double check anything. So like for Jazzy and what she does, like I don't have to worry about anything. She just does everything, and I don't have to second guess anything or micromanage anything. She just does it, and I don't have to worry about it. Like that's huge for me in my own personal journey. So like we talk about being efficient and making things easier. Like just for me to you, like, thank you first off for being so
Yeah.
reliable, which is huge.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
yeah. So at the end of the day, like what are some of the different types of industries that you're seeing people jump into this podcast world? Because I mean, how many podcasts are there out there? Like
Who a
100,
lot.
100 million, 100 billion. I don't know.
Oh, easily, yeah.
So what are some of the industries that you're seeing, really
Um,
focus on this?
for people, good podcasts.
Let's talk about all of that. Let's define that, because people like honestly, I went into this, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just started going and learning and going and learning and just trying to like just learn a little bit at a time and just see where it goes, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, this is probably like, at least in the top, 90, no, top I'm not in 0%, probably like at least in the 1% above the lowest, probably, right? Am I saying
Well,
that
you
right?
made it past 20 episodes, so you've beat
Okay.
out at least 50% of people.
Okay. Okay. So
There's a high
50% of
percentage
people
of people
stop
that
at 20.
at least, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Very high
So,
percentage.
okay. So that's good. Good to know. I like to be able to give that data range.
Hmm.
So am I in like the top 20% already just by getting to 20 episodes?
Probably.
Dude, I gotta pat
And
myself
then
on
the
the back
percentages get
here.
even less and less when you get to 50 episodes, 100 episodes. Yeah.
So this is such an interesting topic because you mentioned good podcasts, right? As one
Yeah.
like way to describe a podcast. Like it's either gonna be good or it's not, or it's just subjective to, hey, one person likes this one person doesn't like this one, and somebody else will like it, right? But at the end of
Right.
the day, this is something I've told a lot of people that have been in my shoes, still in my old shoes from July 12th when I didn't have an Instagram channel. I started
Hmm.
posting on Instagram and I've done a one reel every single day and I've not stopped. So on this channel, we talk about habits, right? And building a habit, doing
Hmm.
every single day. And then the podcast came in September. But there's a lot of people that I know that this is on their mind, but they haven't done it. They haven't taken the next step to actually put themselves out there, to post every day on social media, to start a podcast. And like just doing it, like my motto is shitty content is better than no content, because you can't improve no content. You can improve shitty
Right,
content.
right.
So like that's why I start with my 0 to 1%. Like I got to get off 0% and get to the bottom 1%, right? Before I can go anywhere else. You
Yeah.
have to master the art of showing up before you can improve. So doing 20 episodes, these can be the worst episodes ever, right? But it doesn't matter, because then if I'm at 20, that means I can get to 21, which then I keep going, I can get to 100. And then naturally I'm going to have to get better, right? Or
Yeah,
pray
yeah,
to
of
God that I
course.
get better. Um, okay. So with that being said, am I on the right track here? Like
Hmm.
quantity is not just part of the battle, but it's a big part of the battle for people getting into this world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most podcasts I listen to start out a little rough, but as you listen, they get better and better for the exact same reason. People learn, they learn what they want to ask, how they want to sound, who they want to have on, what they want to talk about, those kinds of things, and they slowly get better.
Okay. Okay. So back to the point I made before about feedback. I love it. Like in my point in my career, I love it when a client will give me feedback. We had an agent um, that we do some business with, and the way that my mortgage team is set up, um, it's not just a one man show. We have a team that's designed to be able to make sure that we can facilitate and help enough people.
Hmm.
And she's like, the communication was a little bit off because they never heard from Joel again, and they didn't expect that. And so, and it went on and on and on, and et cetera. And she wasn't. She at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, she was like a little bit hesitant of wanting to bring it up, and she's like,
Hmm.
hey, I almost didn't want to say it because I didn't want your feelings, but my teammate Stephanie, she's like, oh my god, thank you so much for the feedback, because now we know what we can improve on, right? So like that,
Yeah.
like I remember that just happened maybe about a month ago, and it was just great. So like if you're listening to a podcast, open invite to message them on Instagram or Twitter or wherever you want to message them. Like if you have ideas and feedback, please do, because the majority of the people that are in this kind of entry level position that I'm in, we're just getting started, and we need that feedback and that confidence to know that, wait, hey, well, I want to hear more of this, or hey, you should probably not do that so much. You should probably not
Yeah.
say the word and like every other word in your podcast, because it's a little annoying, like that kind of stuff. So I'm mostly kidding, but like at the end of the day, like being interactive, helping somebody, like that's what this is all about. helping somebody help somebody else.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to you. So you you've been doing this for 5 years ish, a little over 5 years.
Yeah.
Jenny's been your longest time tenured client.
Hmm.
Um, and kind of where are you in your business cycle, business growth arc? Like you've been doing this, started with Virginia, I guess working for her, right?
Hmm.
And then at what point in time did you build your actual business, company, all that stuff?
It was the end of 2019 when I finally decided I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to turn it into a business.
Cool. And then at that time, how many clients did you have?
One.
Holy sugar plum fairy.
Yep.
One client. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just all in.
Hmm.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So then
Things were rocky and rough, and then COVID hit, and I was like, wow, I couldn't have made a better decision to do this.
right.
We were all stuck at home, and everybody was starting podcasts, and I couldn't have planned it better.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't plan shit like that, but just things fall in the right place.
Yeah.
Good luck or just opportunity. Hard work meets opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so 2020 hits, pandemic hits, more people are working from home. And we've talked about this on this channel, like about recession. Like we're in a recession right now, whether the Fed wants to call it a recession or not. But like coming out of the pandemic, people working from home, people
Hmm.
putting more focus on trying to build their own businesses on the side, or people having to do businesses on the side, Uber, online sales, whatever, all the things people are doing online to be able to
Yeah.
survive. Like coming out of this at this point, what are we 2 years out of the start of the pandemic almost ish? Like this society is more prepared for a recession than ever because of the people being able to survive with other means and just having a 9 to 5
Yeah.
job you clock it in on. So you have more people that are jumping into these social media podcasts, content worlds.
Hmm.
Um, so with that being said, like with with your journey and then bringing it out to the perspective, um, aspiring entrepreneurs and people that want to build a podcast, like you built your business in this world, right? So like what's the next step for your business as you're getting into the 2023?
More growth, I guess. I would love to bring on some more clients and really, my goal is to get more people to start podcasts and get to Jenny's point where they're in the top 300, top 100 of their podcast.
Okay,
Really
so
start some great podcasts and help them build that up to really be the best.
so the process of going from first episode to top 300, right? Like obviously you produce content, got to be relevant content, got to do it in a certain way. But like, what are the other things that you guys have done as a team from the auxiliary parts of the process to be able to help accelerate that process? What are the other things that somebody should be doing to gain traction and help more people?
Consistency. She's on almost her 300th episode, because we've been doing this
300th
for a couple
episode.
of years,
Okay.
and it was it was slow moving at first, and as soon as we got past about her 150th episode, her numbers started to shoot up. People really started to notice her. Everybody was listening to her podcast, and it's really sending out those emails and getting on the social media and, hey, have you heard about this podcast yet? Because everybody's listening to it.
Okay. So sending out emails to who?
To her email list, actually. So doing email campaigns.
Okay. Okay. And just remind people to share it, keeping it relevant.
Yep.
Same thing with social media. So she's posting it on her other channels. So what is it?
Hmm.
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, Twitter. Hmm.
Okay. So she's using all of those
Yep.
metrics. Okay. So if she has an episode gets released, it's what, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever the time frame is, right? So
Hmm.
then what is she doing on one of these other platforms?
What do you mean?
Well, what is she actually putting out there on their platforms? Is she posting a link to the podcast? Is it a short video? Is it a typed out clip? Like what is she actually putting out there on the other mediums to be able to connect it back?
It varies. So Instagram and TikTok videos, Reels on Instagram, LinkedIn, a little bit more
So short clips.
educational, and yeah.
Okay.
So kind of we have a pretty good strategy trying to make sure we have different kinds of posts for the different kinds of social media, and that we change it up pretty regularly to keep it interesting and relevant.
So 150 episodes, and all of a sudden things just start to click. All that work you put in, just all of a sudden, boom. So
Yeah.
at that, I mean, like from a social media or a podcast standpoint, like how does the industry evaluate or rate or tangibly compare each other? Like in a basketball game, it's a score, right? Or your wins
Mm-hmm.
and losses. What does the industry look at in terms of comparing success versus not success?
And podcast versus social media. Is that what you're talking
Just
about?
podcast.
Oh, okay. Um, your listeners and your downloads, I guess. Like how many people are listening, how many people are downloading. So that's why it's really great when you can get everyone who's listening to the podcast to download it, because those numbers look even better.
Okay, so let's say someone says, "Hey, check out this podcast. It's a link, and I have an iPhone, so it's an Apple podcast." I click play, listen to 4 minutes of the 30-minute thing. What does that mean versus did I just download it, or is by hitting play, is that a download, or what is it? What
That's
does
a
all that
listen.
mean?
And if you only listen to 4 seconds of it, it doesn't really count either.
What if it was 4 minutes? 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay, yeah.
Because I got one great thing out of that, and then I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. I'll come back and listen to it later, but then I forgot to listen to it later.
So
So that's most people.
yeah, well, there are different numbers also when you really look at your analytics and your statistics and everything. There's difference between just listeners and then engaged listeners, and it will tell you the percentages of how many people are listening to under 20% of a full podcast episode and how many people are listening to more or almost all of the whole episode. And so the engaged listeners are the ones that are listening to, if not the full episode, a higher percentage of it. And so those engaged listeners are the ones you really want, because they're the ones who are going to hear more of what you said, are going to be more engaged, you know?
Okay. So if I'm an engaged listener, and let's just say I'm Jenny, right? Like does she know who the engaged listeners are? She just has a count of what the
You
engaged
just get a
listeners
count.
are. Okay, so is there a way to facilitate more interaction? Because like let's say, she wants to get more feedback from her listeners. The listeners want to get feedback if they may not know how, where, or what. Like what is the medium to be able to make those communications open? And what's the process? Or is there a process for that?
There can be. So that's why I think it's good to link your podcast back to your website so people can leave you comments, send you emails, contact you really easily from your website and listen to your podcast right there, and then just leave a comment, leave a review, get a hold of you however they want right there on your website also.
Okay, cool. So that kind of runs the gamut. So you got your social media platforms, you got your podcast that's hosted. Like we use Simplecast, right? And there's probably
Mm-hmm.
other places like that it's hosted, and then
Yeah, like Anchor and stuff like that.
Anchor, and then by having it on the website, then what's actually happening on the website? It's just a link to it, or what's linked
Yeah,
to Simple?
it's just embedded on your website. So
Okay,
you can send a link to your website as well for people to listen to it, but it's just a better landing page really for people to go listen to your podcast, get to know a little bit more about you and your business, and a little bit easier way for you to get feedback from your engaged listeners and all your people on social media, because everything can get linked back to your website then.
okay, okay. So we're talking about a lot of different things, right? The process,
Yeah.
the why, how to be able to get more and get, how to be able to continue to build your channel, and talking about consistency. So okay, back to the 150. So like, what other metrics are like number of listeners, engaged listeners, views, downloads? What are some of the key metrics that somebody should be aware of? Like for her at 150th episode, like, do you know? Are you able to share what kind of range of downloads that actually meant in real time?
If I could remember exactly, I would share with you.
Okay.
um
Okay. Do you know what it
But
is now?
I believe she's at about 30,000 downloads.
Okay, so 30,000 downloads. Okay. So that, and I think you and I talked about this. 20,000 downloads is like a big, major point or number,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 20,000 downloads is usually about that number where you're reaching enough people that sponsors want to be on your podcast. They want to be a part of all the people you're reaching.
Okay, cool. So then for her, that 150, how many years in? 2 years in for her journey?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
About.
Okay. So what you're saying is that for people out there that want to build a podcast, first off, it's never too late. Better late than
Right.
never to do
Yeah.
it. But then a year or two or three, it's possible to make some positive traction if you just don't stop.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. What other advice or ideas or tips would you give to somebody that hasn't started, that wants to start, but doesn't know where to start?
Give me a call.
Okay.
Always available to answer any questions. And the other thing is, it's not as scary as it seems. A lot of people want to start. They think they want to start, but they don't. They're scared, or they don't think they're going to be good at it. But it's kind of like you said, Joel. If you just start, it gets a lot easier the more you do it. And the great thing is, with podcasts, even though they are very natural and we leave most of what happens in, you can edit out the bad stuff.
Oh yeah. 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 Thanks for reminding me on that. Thank you. Yes. We've had two of those already, just so you
Yeah,
know out there.
yeah.
So what if I'm somebody that's like, I'm in this industry, I have a passion about this and this and this and that. It's like I've got 3 or 4 ideas that I could go down and I don't really know what to do. Is that something they can call you? You can maybe help guide them on what may be a good, thing to focus on, or what are your thoughts on that?
That is absolutely something I can help with. I had this really great lady come to me one time. She called me up, said that same thing. She's like, I think I want to start a podcast. I don't know exactly what I want it to be about. I was like, great, let's meet for coffee. Tell me all your ideas. I'm sure we can figure out something great. She showed up to coffee with a binder, and it kind of looked like a scrapbook. There was everything in there. So we had coffee. We narrowed it all the way down. We had a great idea, and she is still thinking about it because she's still a little intimidated. But yes, I'm more than happy to help with that. I actually love that. I think it's fun. It gives me a chance to be creative and to help the other people be creative and really figure out what their number one goal is.
Okay. So for her with different ideas, it was important to really drill down on one thing
Hmm.
and then stay focused on that one niche. Why?
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Well, just like when you're going to start a business for entrepreneurs, it's like, okay, what's your goal? Who are you helping? How are you helping them? You have to figure out what your niche is, what your business is. It's the same with a podcast. If you try and make a podcast for everyone, you're going to make a podcast for no one because you can't talk to everyone because everyone doesn't like the same thing. But you can make more than one podcast. You just have to, they have to be specific.
Okay. So you don't want to confuse the listener, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So the person out there that wants to start a podcast, if you're not sure where to go next, they can call Jazzy. And where do they find you again?
My website is Premier Podcast Promotions, and all my information's on there, or I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or just give me a call. It's 314-440-8043.
So one of the cool things that I have to say out loud is that going down my own journey, and seeking out help from people. And as you do more research, you just by just sheer coincidence or luck or just whatever, find other people that are in the same range of place that you are in. And, I've kind of built maybe a group of like 10 people or so that are in a similar position trying to build something across different industries and be able to share ideas and share tips and things
Yeah.
that work. And then also, continue to stay in touch and almost like your own like BNI group or your own little networking group to be able to,
Mm-hmm.
stay motivated and keep on going. So the reason I bring it up is that there's probably other people, as you go on your own journey, they're going to be in similar positions, and it's good to be able to network and share and ask questions. And if you wanted to ask me questions or Jazzy questions about anything on social media, anything on wealth, anything on podcasts, we're more than welcome to try to help point you in the right direction. Um, but I mean, for me, this is such an important journey for what I'm trying to build with Strive 25, try to help the everyday person to be able to build wealth and get ahead, because I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to go with this. I just knew that I want to go somewhere. And you kind of create your own voice, create your own narrative, kind of create your own vision almost on the fly along the way, and things can evolve and change. And so by just doing it, for me, it was helpful because it's kind of helped me narrow down and kind of harness what I wanted to be able to get to, where I wouldn't didn't know exactly where I wanted to get to, even like in September when we started. Um, so any other thoughts or advice that you would want to give somebody, social media, podcasts, entrepreneurs, anything like that?
I mean, Joel, I love what you say. Just go from 0% to 1%. Just start doing it.
0% to 1%. I love it. I love it. I was actually I had a call today with my sales coach, Peter Varberg, with Southwest Consulting. And we are trying to build an online course to be able to help somebody from wherever they are in savings journey to go from where they are to the next level. And he had me basically take a number of calls where I'm going through a question and answer and process of digging into someone's scenario about, hey, where are you? Where do you want to go with wealth and savings, or whatever? And I was sharing with them one of the conversations kind of work because I wrote all my notes, right? I was tracking exactly what I asked, what his answers were, and all this stuff. And this person was making like $55,000 a year. They weren't saving any money. Like there wasn't much they could cut. Like they were just at the the bare bones of a budget.
Mm-hmm.
And with inflation, there's just not much you can cut.
Yeah.
And I was like, we talk about this, the savings equation, income minus your expenses equals your savings. So like obviously there's not much you can cut here. But have you thought about, what you can do to be able to generate income? He's like, no, I just don't have time. And I was like, no, I totally get that for sure. But like, have you thought about, well, like we talk about, saving 25% of your income on this channel, but you can't get to 25% if you don't start with 1% or 5%. But like you make, 55,000 a year. If you take that divided by 12 and then take 5% of that monthly number, it ended up being like $230. It's like, can you figure out a way to be able to make an extra $230 a month? He's like, well, yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? He's like, well, my neighbor down the road needs some help cleaning out their garage and organizing things and cutting up the stuff. And I'm like, well, go do it. Make the money, whatever. So he did it. He did
Yeah.
it. He made the money. He did it in like literally 3 hours. He got off the phone. Like this is the day before Thanksgiving. He got off the phone, went to his neighbor's house because they were trying to prepare for um, the holidays, and spent a couple hours over there. Made it happen, save money. It's like having the conversations and discussing the stuff sometimes is can help somebody get clarity on where they want to go. I forget where I was going with that. There was a point to it, but at the end of the day, talking about savings, going from literally nothing to something, just that one step